All right. Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I appreciate you taking the time today to put this together. It's an exciting time to be in politics, and hopefully, we're going to see a sea change here before before too much longer, and I'm looking forward to that.
Fingers crossed to that. Oh my gosh. So let's jump in to say, what seat are you running for, and why are you running for it?
Well, I'm running for the Executive Council, District 4. And to be honest with you, I had not really thought about running for the Executive Council initially. The woman who had been campaigning for it for a period of time was unable to move forward. We respect that. So I think the party was, and people in general were kind of saying, well, we got to figure something out here. So, so feelers went out for different people, and I ended up, coming off the bench and going up and registering for the position. And it's been, it's interesting. I mean, I've done legislative work for a long time, and we'll get into that in a little while. But the Executive Council is kind of this thing that not a lot of people know about and spend time actually participating in, unless you're kind of in the inner core of state government. So.
Well, I guess that's a great transition. What does an executive counselor do?
Well, first of all, I think there's a little bit of history here, which is really interesting. It was formed in 1679, and it was really an attempt by the founders at the time to limit the power and really water down the power of the leader, of the governor at the time, because we were in a time in this country when people didn't trust monarchs and kings and things like that. So when they put this together, it really was an opportunity to water it down, to take the authority of the governor. And we've often heard this idea that the governor is kind of a weak governor in the state. We actually have a system whereby the governor and the Executive Council share responsibilities. Now, the Executive Council, there's 5 of them elected from throughout the state. They are housed within the Executive Department. And there is this balance that takes place within the Executive Council. Now, they tried to do away with it some years ago, and they were unsuccessful. And right now, it is considered by many people to be one of the most democratic forms of government in the United States. And some people claim the world, because there's not many places that share this kind of authority. So when you ask what the council does, the council is responsible for the oversight of the various contracts within the state. Now, we have 3 branches: judicial, legislative, and the executive, and these people are responsible for the administration of contracts. So every contract over $10,000 comes before the Executive Council. So that's a lot of contracts, and they have the opportunity and the responsibility to review those and pass on those one way or the other, ask questions, send them back, and do all kinds of things. The other thing that they are responsible for is the appointments of all of the, now the governor recommends, but the Executive Council, with few exceptions, the Governor's Council really is responsible for confirming many of the department heads so you've got, Health and Human Services, Labor, Education, all those department heads are really nominated by the governor, approved by the Executive Council. They need three votes. And, anytime you've ever been in front of the council, you're always looking for 3 votes. So, and then the other thing, and that becomes really important, the idea that you're able to act on commissioners and not only that, but they have hundreds of people who serve on boards of commissions in the state, and the Executive Council approves all those. But think about the opportunity to really shape government. It really is a terrific opportunity in that you can use your knowledge and your skills and your experience and your gut really to put people in positions that that believe that government has a role to play in people's lives. I mean, all so often we hear this idea, well, it's a government, it's a government. Well, I was a firefighter for 27 years, and I can tell you, I was the face of government for a lot of people. And when we showed up, they were very grateful. So it's not, you know, it's not like the government is a bad thing. For many people, it is the place or the organization or the entity which helps to solve problems in their lives. And hopefully, if we do this right, make their lives better. And so, you know, this is an opportunity to really shape government. And so, I mean, I think it's really exciting. And so those are the kinds of things that the Executive Council, you know, generally is responsible for. And there's one other big piece that was shifted over to them some years ago, and that was the management or the oversight of the 10-year highway plan. Now, when you think about that, there's a whole bunch of roads and bridges and all of this infrastructure that it comes before the Executive Council. It's a big job, and it's an important job. And I think they are able to identify some of the challenges and work with the departments to try to overcome, you know, some of the things that we're going to face in this state in terms of infrastructure. You know, for instance, there are a whole bunch of what they refer to as red listed bridges, which are bridges that are in tough shape and they're on a special list. So the council looks at those kinds of things. They work with the departments and the governor, of course, and then they forge various policies and work on making sure that whatever the legislative branch does in terms of appropriating funds, that ends up getting done. And so it's this kind of cooperative environment that hopefully we work under. You know. So
that's a really good description. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you.
So currently, well, so let's say, who are you up against?
Well, right now there is a primary. There are two people that are in the primary. I know one of them, but I haven't yet to meet the other person. There's a person from Hooksett who, as far as I know, has not been doing a lot, but I don't know. And there's also a person from Manchester who I know. So those are the primary opponents. In terms of the general election, I'm up against, I would be, if I'm the nominee, whoever is going to be up against Ted Gatsas. Now, Ted Gatsas, some people may know him, some people may not. I've known him a long time. He was the mayor of Manchester. He's on the executive council. He was a state senator. He made his money in the business of temporary workers. Is really where he made a lot of his money and sold the company. He's not going down easy. Let's put it that way. And especially when you consider, you know, how critical those 3 votes out of the governor, you know, he's not going down easy. So it's going to be a tough fight. He has some roots in the community. I like the thing that I do as well. I ran for Congress, you know, with Chris Pappas and a number of other people I might have. So, I mean, I've done that. And I also have roots in terms of the community work that I've done, the fire service work. And we can talk more about kind of what I've done in my career. But Teddy's going to be tough. And I am anticipating that he will be a formidable opponent.
I would agree upon that, yes. So, because you started that conversation, why don't you talk about your history, your employment, your history in Manchester, kind of give us your background.
Sure. Well, let me, I grew up in Everett, Massachusetts, and I loved the fire department. I did everything I can to get as close as I could to fire trucks and to the people who staffed the fire departments. I was in an organization called the Malden Emergency Center, which was a group that ran, you know, years ago before they had professional ambulances and all that. So I did that kind of work. We did ambulance work. We went to fires and put up lights and yanked hoses around. I was on the auxiliary fire department, and I tried to get into the fire department in Massachusetts. I took the test with the hope that I would get on, but it was a time when people coming back from Vietnam, and things were happening, and there was a lot happening in the communities at that time. So I looked around, and I had the only thing I knew about Manchester, New Hampshire, quite frankly, was they used to have some great restaurants, and we used to go skiing as kids, and we'd come back through, and Manchester was always a place that we would stop. And so I didn't know a whole lot about it, and I rolled up here, and I knew some people that were up here. I knew a couple of priests because I worked at a firm in Massachusetts, and we did a bunch of work for churches and stuff. So I reached out to them. I went to see the chief, and I applied in 1974, and I was accepted in September of 1974. And I moved to New Hampshire, and took up roots, and spent 27 years on the Manchester Fire Department, and I retired as a captain a few years back now, and I absolutely loved the job. It was in terms of jobs, it was the best job I think that you can have. It was exciting. You had an opportunity to really help people. You had roots in the community. It was the kind of job that if you worked at it, studied hard, you could move up through the ranks, and I ended up as a captain. Now, at the same time, I cut my teeth in the labor movement in the fire service. I had a good friend of mine, Ronnie Philibert, who has since passed. He came to me and he said, and I was on just a couple of months, and he said, we'd like you to help out with the union, and we need a secretary treasurer. And he said, it's only about an hour a month. So he showed up a little box, and he gave it to me, and that was the beginning of my career. 4 years later, Ronnie and I, and one other person who was in leadership at the time, led a successful strike in the city of Manchester with the firefighters. We took every firefighter out of the station, spent 10 days on the street. It was one of the few public employee strikes in the United States at the time. It grabbed national attention, and we were successful at the very last minute in resolving that strike. We resolved it, I believe, on a Friday night. On Saturday morning, we had all been served paperwork, and we were told to report to the armory in Manchester, be arrested, essentially, and jailed. And all the national press were in and everything. And we had made a commitment. We're going to put our uniforms on. We're going to march right down the middle of Elm Street into the arena at the time, the National Guard Armory. We settled the strike. As a result of that, firefighters have went from working 48 hours to working 42, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in terms of the way you do your schedule and all those kinds of things, it's a major improvement. So we did win. It was a successful strike. Now, that kind of brought me up to the next level in my union career. Now, all the time, I'm still in the fire service, but I went to work with the professional firefighters. New Hampshire lobbied with them for a number of years. Was a secretary treasurer of the professional firefighters. And then I moved over to the AFL-CIO, where I was a legislative agent and the executive vice president for a number of years, and then finally was elected as a president. And I served 25 years as a president of the AFL-CIO, was the longest serving state federation president in the United States. And I got myself in all kinds of trouble with that job. But again, it was an opportunity to participate in government. I testified hundreds of times in the legislature, led progressive organizations, worked on campaigns, all kinds of Democratic campaigns over the course of the time that I was in there, and worked really to hopefully change the nature of the state. And I think we were successful in moving forward some progressive legislation and improving conditions, working conditions for people. And we were also at the time, the AFL-CIO, not just me, but we had an organization that was, really robust at the time. And we were able to push back, whether it was immigration or minimum wage or unemployment or workers' compensation. We had pretty good capacity to push back and fight back. And really what I was known for the longest period of time, and is I was at the lead in leadership when we beat Right to Work. Now, we didn't beat it once or twice. We beat it, I believe, 17 or 18 times when I was the president of the AFL-CIO. And Right to Work, you don't need to know all the nuances, but what you need to know is that the bad guys for Right to Work, you know, the anti-labor, the right-wing Republicans, you know, people who think the labor movement is bad. So we fought that many years. We beat it, Republican governors, Democratic governors, Republican House. And so I was busy during that period of time. In the meantime, I had gone back to school. I have an undergrad degree in public administration and a master's degree from the University of New Hampshire in public administration. So I did that along the way. I was in the state legislature for a couple of years. I enjoyed that. I was on the House Labor Committee, and it was really fun to go back. You know, you testify for all these times, you know, as a lobbyist and as a leadership, and then all of a sudden you're sitting on the other side of the table, and all those people that were, you know, kind of, you know, fighting back pretty hard against organized labor. All of a sudden, it was kind of a time when I could ask questions and kind of turn the table. So I enjoyed my time in the Labor Committee. I left the state legislature to run for Congress 2 years ago, and it was something I had always wanted to do. The seat was open, and so I ran along with a number of people, and I had the time of my life. I really did. It was exhausting in a lot of ways, but it was something I really wanted to do. I loved meeting people. I met some of the sweetest, nicest, smartest, fun people of my life. I went to picnics and parades and backyard parties and really had a ball doing it, and learned a lot about myself during the course of things and what makes me tick, and you know, where things come from, you know, my ideas, and so it was a wonderful experience. I lost big time, so, but I lost to a great guy. I lost to Chris Pappas, who's a hard worker, a good campaigner, and a great congressperson. So there I am, kind of where we're at now. Moved up. I have children. I have grandchildren. So I have a full life, and I am very happy to be, you know, running for this position right now.
So you have run campaigns before, and I'm curious to know what's the difference between a congressional campaign and one for executive council? What have you learned from that campaign that you would apply here?
Well, I think that I think one of the challenges running for the executive council, as opposed to the Congress, is that people understand when you say I'm running for Congress. When you say I'm running for the executive council, the first thing they do is kind of scratch their head and say, "What?" They don't know what it is. So you have to start from the very beginning and explain to people kind of what the role of it is. Congress is, Congress tends to attract a lot more attention. You know, vendors call you, advisors call you, other political people will call you. So it tends to have a broader, a scope that's more national in sometimes. But the bottom line is, you know, it's the same people. I mean, I'm meeting a lot of the people through these things that I met when I was running for Congress. It's so different right now because we don't have the parties and parades and all that kind of stuff, but a lot of the same people. In terms of, I think the hard thing to do whenever you run for public office is raise money. And raising money is hard because you're out there with a lot of people. There's a lot of demands on people who are, you know, in the progressive movement, you know, progressive Democrats. There's a lot of pressure on them. And you find ways to talk to your friends and do the best you can to get some of the money from them. But they're under a lot of pressure. I did okay. Not nearly as good as I probably should have, but it was. I think that's the toughest thing. The other thing uh, is probably having a look at your friends, people that you have helped and known and been with, and worked on campaigns and progressive things, and basically have them tell you, and many people did, that we can't support you. We're supporting Chris, or we're supporting Maura or somebody else, and so that, I did a piece for high school kids today, and when I said at the end of it, I said, you're going to have times when you do work in politics where you don't win. You just don't win, whether you're the candidate or you're working for a candidate. But I think what my suggestion to them, and what I've always said, and I got this. I'm a Bernie Sanders guy, and you gotta contribute. And if you, during the course of your campaign, don't win, but that you change the debate and you move the ball down the field, then I think it's successful. And you've got to get on the field, you've got to play, and you've got to play to win. But you may not always do that. But there is a lot of progress made in political campaigns. I think you saw the evolution of people like Joe Biden and others during the course of this campaign. Bernie often talks about, when he introduced the $15 hour minimum wage, everybody said he was nuts, and now everybody's kind of jumped on board. Healthcare for all, and education, free education at the community level. All that stuff has become more popular. So that's an example of how you move the ball. And Bernie didn't win, but Bernie changed the I think the course of politics, and certainly shifted the debate. So that's I think a really important thing whenever you run for public office. And Congress gave me the opportunity to talk about that stuff, and I watched the evolution of the candidates who were in there, including myself. And so it's exciting to do that stuff.
So you have mentioned if you make it to the general election in November, you would have a very challenging race. How do you foresee that happening? I mean, how do you think you're going to win someone who's been in that role for 2 terms now? And is extremely well known in Manchester. Like, what do you need? What do you want to do? What's the goal?
Well, I think that the goal is to contrast myself and Gatsis. We're very different people. We think very differently. I have a long history in Manchester. I know a lot of people. So I think the way that we would look at this campaign, if I make it through the primary, is that it really is about ideas. It's about the concept that government works for people, and that you have a responsibility when you are in elected office to make sure that what you do is not about you or some people you may know, but is really about the broader public and the broader community. I think that there is enough about enough of a record with Ted Gatsis. He was a mayor and lost. He was in the state senate. We have a record of him, a whole bunch of stuff. He's been executive council. We've got a bunch of votes on him, that we can look at and really begin the process of defining him, for the person that he is. And, he has been successful over the past, few years. He wasn't successful as the mayor of Manchester. And my hope is that we can muster those people together and retire Ted Gatsis, quite frankly. And so the other way that you win elections is not only about, those kinds of aspects of a campaign, the candidate themselves, but it's your capacity to be able to get people to coalesce around your ideas and what you represent. And I am beginning to do that now. The state employees endorsed me, which is the largest, public employee union in the state. The professional firefighters and my own local union has endorsed me. I am in the process of looking at possible, looking at and seeking the endorsement of the AFT and the NEA in New Hampshire. They are not happy with the current Commissioner of Education, and his term is up, and will be the new council will be responsible for, putting him forward. So I think these are, some of the, some of the things you do, and you get people to, what you stand for, who you are. You get people to kind of coalesce around that. Now, in my case, I'm pretty well known for what I do. I mean, even during all the courses of the congressional campaign, they may not even remember my name, but they remember they used to say, "You're the union guy." I said, "I'm the union guy." So that helps me with a whole lot of people. We tend to, there's going to be a whole program within the AFL-CIO within various unions that'll motivate, motivate union members to get out there and to vote. I'm hoping that I will be, endorsed by the AFL-CIO and other unions in the state. So that's how we kind of build on this. Now, one of the outliers in this election that we have not seen, quite frankly, and I think everybody's trying to figure this out, is that this will not be a typical campaign. We're going to have people who are rightfully so not crazy about going to the polls and standing in line. We're going to potentially have long lines at the polls. So there is a big effort, and the legislature just, and the governor approved this, but there is an effort to get people to register absentee. And I think that that's a whole wrinkle that, we haven't had. Now, you can't knock on doors, you can't do parades, you can't, gather in large groups, you can't do rallies, you can't do a lot of that stuff. So when you take all of that out, and I think the President of the United States is trying to figure this out as well, this is a whole new environment that we're operating in. So I think if I'm the nominee, I think I'll work with the party. We'll try to figure this thing out, and we'll go on from there. But I think it's going to be very different.
So the past couple of years, I'd say. I mean, so before you was Chris Pappas in that seat, the executive council seat. What I am going to ask, because, Lee is kind of on the outskirts of the district. And we're not big like Manchester, and how would you involve the outskirts of your district, and even outside of Manchester? How do you want them to get involved, and how would you reach out to them and get them involved in, even beyond, let's say you win the election, like how would you keep them all together and keep moving forward with, the momentum outside of Manchester?
Sure. I mean, I think it's a great question. And let me say that I managed an organization with 225 local unions. Now, why is that important? Because I managed an organization that had membership all throughout the state. And I have some skills in terms of being able to reach out and to build relationships, which I think is so critical in this work. I understand that town committees play an interesting role, but I also want to make sure that as the executive counselor, because of the broad scope of that responsibility, that we have enough pieces in place that we were able to get back the information that we need to make decisions. Now, the best thing that I can do, and I've learned this in politics, is you build relationships. Because when you build relationships, you have things that happen. People call you and tip you off. They'll ask you to a meeting. They'll engage you in what's going on. And my responsibility is to be responsive to that, so that the people, whether you're in Loudon or you're in, wherever you happen to be in this process, in Manchester or Bedford, that you understand that I will be there, that I will show up, that I will be there, that I will get the best information I can get from you, and I will do my best to represent your interests. Now, I represented local unions. There were 5,000, 6,000, 8,000 people, and I represented a lot of local unions that were 8 people, 6 or 8 people. They always got the same treatment. I always showed up whenever they asked me to, and we always engaged them in every effort that we had. So that's kind of where I come from, servicing people, understanding that, how to build relationships with them. And I think that that's the way I roll, and that's the way I will roll. I can't, I mean, I'm not, kidding myself. The executive council seat is a very complicated seat, and you need as much input from people who are in the know. So if there's going to be a road built in your community, or Manchester, or Bedford, or Loudon, or it's good to know people over there who have the inside story and can help inform me or the rest of the council in terms of what's going on. The other thing is that, I talk a little bit about the positions, the various positions in state government. I think that the idea of engaging people in those kinds of discussions is very interesting. Now, we can't do it for all, but certainly we should do it for the Department of Education, because there is so much going on right now around education and the challenges that people are facing. And that's everybody's. That's everybody. That's for everybody in this state of New Hampshire, and certainly the people within District 4. So I think there are, we're doing Zoom right now. There are opportunities for us to connect with each other in very different ways. But the commitment that I make to you is the same commitment that I made when I was a union rep or a fire rep or whatever the case may be. I'll be there, and I'll pick up the phone, and you'll know how to get a hold of me. And I'll listen to you, and together we'll hopefully make things better in the state and make better decisions because we are better informed. So that's how I would never run for office and then neglect certain communities because I come out of Manchester. I wouldn't, that's not how it rolls. So.
Good, just had to ask. Everything's so Manchester focused, and it's like, hey, there's a whole group of people outside of Manchester. So I only have 2 questions left. One is, how can the Lead Democrats help you?
Well, I think that in the situation we find ourselves in, we are going to have to find ways to connect with people. And there is no better way, I don't think, than local committees. Because I think people, if we can position local committees, town committees, if they can become kind of the center of a lot of this activity that we're going to do, it gives us a pretty good in the sense that, town committee, people know each other. They know what's going on. They know how to connect. They know phone numbers and names and where people work and other things like that. Information that, quite frankly, is going to be difficult to get, not having a big field program out there. So I think the town committee, I think they play an important role. And, if I were to be, if I were Ray Buckley, and if I'm the nominee, I will certainly say this to him or anybody else, that we really need to put some resources into town committees and help them not only to build for this election, but to build for future elections, to strengthen them and make sure that they have what they need to pull people together. And so I think town committees are going to play a big role in that. And the other thing is that, how we get the word out, and the state Democratic Party is hiring a whole lot of people. We got to figure out a way to kind of break through the phone and other things like that, and make this really a grassroots campaign where we really start talking to the people that we know. Not that that's unusual, for campaigns, but in this particular campaign, finding people who know about those communities is going to be really critical as we move forward, because you're going to know who the movers and shakers are, who we need to talk to, how we get to them, what's the best way to reach voters in those communities. So I think, my sense is I can't win this with just Manchester. I need every community in this, in this district. And I think that, like I said, the commitment that I'll make to you is that we will do this together. And this will be your seat, not my seat, our seat. This will be our seat, we. And I want you to feel that. I want the people of all of these communities to feel that.
That's great. And then my last question is there anything that I didn't ask but you wanted to share with the group?
You know, the only thing I guess I would say is that I'm coming into this late. You know, I had not thought about running for this seat. I came off the bench to do it. I'm excited about it, but it presents some problems for me in terms of building an organization. So I really, if I'm the nominee, we don't have a whole lot of time. So I'm going to need everybody's help to really pull this thing off. And so we, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a certain urgency here. Because I didn't have the time to spend months building an organization, raising all kinds of money and doing those things. So I'm in a different position, but I think that, you know, as this thing shapes up and as the national scene shapes up, I think many Republicans are going to be in trouble throughout this country. And my hope is that Ted Gatsas will be as well, and the governor will be. And many of those people who are fighting back against what we want is people, there's safe communities and good schools and great infrastructure and public transportation and things like that, that we will prevail in this, and I'm excited about it. And I look for your support. I need your support. I have a Facebook page. I haven't done a big web page as yet, but I do have a Facebook page. And my number is on the Facebook page. You can call me anytime. I'll do the best I can to get back to you. And let me thank you for doing this tonight. I know, you know, people are busy right now. It's Friday afternoon. But thank you, and thank all of the people who may watch this over the course of time.
Sure, just one more. You want to plug your Facebook page? Facebook.com/
Yeah, it's MacKenzie. It's MacKenzie D4 EU, which is, you know, the District 4 Executive Council. That's actually the name of the page. So you can jump on there. We're going to be ramping things up and probably moving off. I have, because I was a state rep and things, I still have a bunch of stuff kind of going on in between. But you can jump on that, and we're going to start up certainly updating that. So, and you can reach me at the same email address, which is MacKenzie D4EU@gmail.com.
Great. So we'll share that when we send out this video. I'll send the link to your Facebook page as well. And then I think if anybody's watching, feel free to reach out to Mark. Obviously, he needs our support. So with that, I guess we'll end this conversation.
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you so much. You too. Bye.
Bye now.